Pleasant greetings to all. This morning we celebrated Chrism Mass when the bishop blessed the holy oils used in sacraments, the chrism oil, the oil for the catechumens, and the oil for the sick. The Chrism Mass is a celebration of the institution of the priesthood with the words of Jesus at the Last Supper, "Do this in memory of me." During the Mass, all present are called to renew their baptismal promises. The ordained priests and deacons are further called to reaffirm their ministry by renewing the promises made at their ordination. This used to be celebrated at the Mass of the Lord's Supper until Pope Pius XII in 1955 promulgated a separate Mass for the blessing of the holy oils. The Mass of the Lord's Supper that we celebrate at the evening of Maundy Thursday highlights the institution of the Eucharist, the institution of the ministerial priesthood, and the commandment of brotherly love that Jesus gave after washing the feet of his disciples. It inaugurates the Easter Triduum. Yes, one may be tempted to remember this celebration because of the rich symbolism of the rituals involved. But here is a warning.
The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrote about a town where a fireman lived. Everyone liked the fireman because he was a nice guy. He made it a habit to be gentle and kind, which was unusual for firemen, who were supposed to be tough. There was a fire one day, and the fireman charged to the scene of the fire with his fellow firemen and heavy equipment. As they came toward the fire, much to their surprise and chagrin, they encountered between themselves and the flames about 200 townspeople. And each of them was standing there with a water pistol, aiming at the fire, going squirt, 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 squirt. The fireman asked, "What's going on here?" A spokesman for the group turned and said, "Well, we all appreciate this wonderful work you're doing in our community, and each of us has come to contribute in some small way to your work. Squirt, squirt. But we just wanted to offer this token of our support. Squirt, squirt. You don't know what you're doing," shouted the fireman. "True, but you have to appreciate the fact that everyone is willing to offer whatever help they can," said the spokesman. Everyone said, "Amen," and went squirt, squirt. At that, the fireman shouted, "All of you, get out of here. This is no picnic, this is a fire, and a fire doesn't require well-meaning people who come to make small contributions. A fire is a place where people come to give their lives." Sometimes we are a lot like those people. And one hears the celestial fireman say, "Will you please get out of here?" What I am looking for are disciples who are radically committed and willing to die for the sake of the gospel. Perhaps, all these years as a Christian, as a Catholic, we may have been washing the feet of some people we choose to love, occasionally, and maybe, even for some, on a regular basis, but only with minute squirts from our toy hearts. Come on. We know better than that. And God knows best. He knows that we really do not give Him our best washing, our best service, our best selves. When we come to church, do we at least come in our Sunday's best and modest attire? Are we at least giving God the best of our attention? And what about the best of our time? Do we still habitually come to Mass late? Is that our best? Or just a squirt, squirt? Let us not go into the details of this washing of each other's feet. This is just a ritual. Service and love are not rituals. It's all about relationships.
I always pose this catechetical, tricky question. How many 7 sacraments do we have in the Catholic Church? That is a tricky question, right? Because the answer is more than 7. Of course, officially, we only have 7 sacraments. But remember, Jesus also said during the Last Supper, "I no longer call you slaves, because a slave does not know what his master is doing. I have called you friends, because I have told you everything I have heard from my Father. That is in John 15:15. Together with the essential sacraments of the Eucharist and holy orders, Jesus instituted the sacrament of agape friendship. The sacraments is all about friendship with the Lord. It's all about relationships. So, are you a squirt giver in your overall relationship with God, others, and your life? Here are the marks to check in our lives. First mark, the spiritualizing attitude. This is marked by a pseudo-spirituality or a false spirituality or religiosity that is actually materialistic. Are you simply seeking the appearance of being spiritual or religious in your life? Like the borrowed show money you produce so you can get abroad? Are you a person who tends to speak of a biblical passage or a quotation from a private revelation prophecy source to every human situation? Some people are fond of quoting the Blessed Mother, what she said in Garabandal, in Medjugorje, in Lipa, always quoting the Blessed Mother but never really reading the Bible. Do you practice and live a human-driven spirituality like meditation techniques to find God within, which is of course not God-centered? Or do you have what I call the Oprah Winfrey spirituality, a heretical prosperity gospel spirituality? As long as you have wealth, everything is okay. God is with you because God hates material poverty. Are you the materialistic version of Mother Teresa, generous as long as material riches abound? I am afraid you might be bringing that mindset to the next national election process, voting for someone because all you see is money, 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 which will allegedly be given back to you and your family after being stolen from you anyway, should your candidate win. If you have the spiritualizing attitude, you are a squirt giver. Shame on you, Christian. The second mark is a quick fix attitude. This is an attitude of bribing, offering a carrot on a stick. This is pretty much like the first attitude. Are you a person who resorts to hastily contrived remedies that alleviate problems only for the time being, usually offering material solutions to all kinds of problems? The carrot on a stick practice is actually tying a carrot on a string to a long stick and dangling it in front of the donkey, just out of its reach. Of course, you move the cart away, hoping the donkey follows suit, as long as the carrot remains out of reach. You can do this with empty rhetorics and promises, feeding on the ignorance and weaknesses of others. You can also do this with bribes and therefore perpetuate corruption. If you have the quick fix attitude, you are a squirt giver. Shame on you, Christian. The third mark is a usurious or marketplace mindset. The marketplace mindset is a barter trade mindset. In the vernacular, it is the kaliwaan palengke attitude. This has a very subtle day-to-day expression. For example, the reason you go to Mass is because you ask God for a favor. If God answers no, then sorry, no dealings with God hereafter. Or when you want to offer a scholarship grant for, quotes, deserving students. And by deserving, you mean the students should have high grades. Oh yes, you can be that person to your own child. You see, by usurious, we mean excessively high rate of expected returns from giving. You can say sige, pag-aaralin kita, dito ka titira, bibigyan kita ng allowance, pero gagawin mo lahat ng gawaing bahay at lahat ng mga utos ko. Translation, okay, I send you to school, give you allowance, but I want you to be my slave. If you have a usurious or marketplace mindset, you are a squirt giver. Shame on you, Christian. The fourth mark is that you are an indifferent helper. By this we mean you are helping others, but with no particular interest in or concern for the persons. Helping is functional. That is my job. Trabaho lang, walang personalan. You are just an apathetic service provider. At syempre, sa maliit na tulong, ang dami pang comments. You give little help accompanied by a flood of bitter side comments. If you are an indifferent helper, you are a squirt giver. Shame on you, Christian. The fifth mark is that you are a random rummage giver. Give away this, give away that, because I've used them anyway and they are useless for me. There is no love, compassion, specific noble purpose, objective, or pattern in my giving. And what inspires me to give away my excess old and new baggages? The old wicked saying, well, beggars cannot be choosers. In fact, they ought to be thankful to me. I am their hero. If you are a random rummage giver, you are a squirt giver. Shame on you, Christian. And the sixth mark is this: you are a tentative, tardy helper. This is marked by a hesitant and conditional act of giving. It is like you being unable to easily part ways with a still plastic-wrapped white towel gift that you received on your wedding day 25 years ago. Now, the white color of your towel has faded into ancient sepia-like photograph, and you cannot decide right away to give to a neighbor whose house was burnt to the ground. Why? Because of sentimental reasons. A year after that, you decide to give it away just the same. Well, after using it for some time. That is crazy. You give help too little, too late. And yet you say, buti nga nagbigay pa ako eh. It is good that I gave anyway. What if God treated you in the same way, withholding His mercy until you are dead? Then there is no salvation for you, my friend. If you are a tentative, tardy, or late helper, you are a squirt giver. Shame on you, Christian.
This is a man who almost learned to walk at a rehab center that almost got built by people who almost raised the money needed. Well, in fairness, they gave. But only a squirt. But how good is giving a squirt? About as good as almost walking. This is a boy who almost had a bite of burger leftovers from customers who almost gave him food as he waited behind the glass pane. When he fell asleep at the pavement, someone saw him and pitied him, thus only gave him a squirt. Another saw him and blamed the boy's lazy parents. That's another squirt. And this boy, well, he almost made it through the night. These kids almost had a community center. A contractor squirted a desire to build it. A carpenter squirted to work on the crew. And everyone else simply squirted at the fundraiser. They almost gave. They gave a squirt. And these kids, well, they almost stayed out of trouble. This is a family that was almost fed by neighbors who almost volunteered to help them out. Almost. Why? Because they squirted to themselves saying it's the government's job. Some even blamed the government's corruption. But when it comes to giving, squirting doesn't count. This is a girl who almost finished grade school. She was a scholar of a well-funded agency. She almost finished, had the agency not expected high grades from her. She was removed from the list of deserving students by the agency. Her low grades were mostly due to her peddling activities in the afternoon after class. This is Lola grassing. A lot of people almost helped her. One almost cooked for her. Another almost brought her to a doctor. Still another almost stopped by on her lonely chair to smile and hug her. They almost helped. They just pass her by and squirt to themselves, "I am lonely myself." Remember, in washing each other's feet, squirting does not count. Why? Because squirting is almost giving. And almost giving is the same as not giving at all.
Please naman, do yourself, others, and Christ a favor. Don't be a squirt giver. May God bless us all.